Listen up. You've been doing this all wrong. You think making her miss you means sending those late-night texts, posting strategic photos, or dropping hints about how much fun you're having without her. That's amateur hour. That's what boys do when they're still playing games in the shallow end. Real men understand something deeper, something most guys will never grasp. The most powerful way to make her miss you isn't through what you say or what you show. It's through what you withhold. It's through the silence that speaks louder than any words ever could. She doesn't miss your messages. She misses the energy behind them. She doesn't miss your presence. She misses the feeling of being in your gravitational pull. And here's what's going to blow your mind. The moment you stop trying to be memorable, you become unforgettable. You want to know the truth about female psychology? Women don't miss what they can predict. They miss what they can't control. They miss the mystery, the uncertainty, the space where their imagination runs wild. And your silence, your strategic absence, becomes the canvas where her mind paints a masterpiece of longing. Think about it. When you were always available, always responding, always there, what happened? She got comfortable. She got lazy. She took your energy for granted because she knew exactly where to find it. Your consistency became her security blanket, and security blankets don't create desire. They create comfort, and comfort is the enemy of attraction. But the moment you disappear without explanation, without drama, without the typical emotional outburst that she's expecting, something shifts in her brain. Suddenly, she's dealing with something she can't categorize. She can't put you in the box labeled desperate or needy or controllable. You've become something far more dangerous. You've become unpredictable. Here's what happens in her mind when you go silent. At first, she thinks you're playing games. She expects you to crack, to reach out, to explain yourself. She's been conditioned by every other man in her life to expect weakness disguised as strategy. But when days pass and your silence remains pure, unbroken, authentic, her brain starts working overtime. She starts checking her phone more frequently, not because she's worried about you, but because she's worried about herself. She's worried about the space you used to occupy in her daily routine. That good morning text that annoyed her when it came every day, now its absence creates a void in her morning ritual. That random check-in that she used to dismiss, now she finds herself expecting it, craving it, missing the predictability of your attention. But here's where most men mess up. They think silence means sulking. They think disappearing means being bitter, angry, or hurt. That's not silence. That's emotional manipulation wrapped in quietness. Real silence comes from a place of peace, not pain. Real silence is born from self-respect, not revenge. When you disappear the right way, you're not punishing her. You're protecting yourself. You're not trying to teach her a lesson. You're learning your own. You're not playing hard to get. You're becoming hard to get. And there's a universe of difference between those two approaches. The man who goes silent strategically is calm, centered, focused on his mission. He's not checking her social media, not asking mutual friends about her, not leaving breadcrumbs for her to follow back to him. He's genuinely moved on, even if temporarily. He's invested his energy somewhere else, someone else, something else that actually returns his investment. And that energy shift, that's what she feels first. Before she even realizes she misses you, she senses that your energy is no longer accessible to her. She can't tap into your emotional reserves anymore. She can't get her fix of validation, attention, or drama from your direction. You've become energetically unavailable, and that unavailability creates a hunger in her that she didn't know existed. Women are emotional archaeologists. When you go silent, she starts digging through the layers of your relationship, looking for clues, trying to understand what happened, where things went wrong, what she might have missed. She replays conversations, analyzes your last interactions, searches for signs she overlooked. And in that archaeological dig, she uncovers something she buried while you were present, your value. She starts remembering the way you made her feel when she wasn't taking you for granted. She starts noticing the effort you put in that she dismissed as clingy. She starts appreciating the consistency she labeled as boring. She starts missing the security she called suffocating. Your absence becomes a mirror that reflects back everything she failed to see when you were there. But here's the psychology behind why this works so powerfully. The human brain is wired to want what it can't have, to value what it can't control, to crave what it can't predict. When you were always available, you satisfied her need for security, but killed her desire for mystery. When you disappear without explanation, you flip that script completely. Now she's dealing with uncertainty, and uncertainty creates emotional investment. She starts wondering what you're doing, who you're with, how you're feeling. She starts imagining scenarios, creating stories. filling in the blanks with her own narrative. And here's the kicker. The story she creates in her head is always more interesting than the reality you were living when you were accessible. Your silence forces her to confront something uncomfortable. The possibility that she might have been wrong about you. The possibility that you weren't as weak as she thought, as needy as she assumed, as controllable as she believed. Your ability to walk away without explanation, without begging, without emotional outbursts, reveals a strength she didn't know you possessed. And strength, brother, is magnetic. Not the fake strength that comes from playing games or manipulating emotions. The real strength that comes from knowing your worth and being willing to walk away from anyone who doesn't recognize it. That strength doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't need to explain itself. It just is. And its presence is felt even in its absence. This is why your silence becomes more powerful than any words you could speak. Words can be argued with, dismissed, forgotten. But silence? Silence leaves space for her imagination to run wild. Silence lets her project her own fears, desires, and regrets onto the void you've left behind. Silence makes her the author of her own longing. When you go silent the right way, you're not just absent from her life. You're absent from her ability to categorize and control you. She can't paint you as the desperate ex because you're not reaching out. She can't label you as bitter because you're not attacking her. She can't dismiss you as weak because you're not begging for another chance. You've become something she's never dealt with before. A man who walks away without explanation, without drama, without the need to have the last word. A man who values his peace more than her understanding. A man who protects his energy more than her feelings. And that type of man is rare enough to be haunting. Your silence echoes in her quiet moments. When she's alone with her thoughts, your absence fills the space. When she's scrolling through her phone, she notices your lack of presence. When she's making decisions, she misses having your perspective. Not because she valued it when she had it, but because she values what she can't access. Here's what separates the men from the boys in this game. Boys go silent to get a reaction. Men go silent to get their power back. Boys disappear temporarily, expecting her to chase. Men disappear permanently, building a life so compelling that her pursuit becomes irrelevant. When you master the art of silence, you're not playing a game anymore. You're living by a standard. The standard that says your energy is precious, your time is valuable, and your presence is a privilege that must be earned, not assumed. She'll miss you without you saying a word because your silence says everything. Words never could. It says you're done explaining yourself to someone who wasn't listening. It says you're done proving your worth to someone who couldn't see it. It says you're done being available to someone who made you an option. Your silence becomes your signature. Your absence becomes your message. Your unavailability becomes your brand. And that brand, brother, is what makes you unforgettable long after the noise of other men fades into background static. The man who can disappear without saying a word has mastered something most men never will. The art of being missed without trying to be missed. The power of creating longing through absence. The strength of letting silence do what words never could. That's the man she can't forget. That's the man who haunts her thoughts. That's the man who makes her miss what she didn't know she had until it was gone without explanation. Without goodbye, without giving her the closure she thinks she deserves. Make her miss you without saying a word. Not because you're playing games, but because you've become a man worth missing.